And over the last couple years, I've realized, and it really hit home last year, that if I quit fighting where life is taking me, it's taking me in the direction of where I'm supposed to go.
Okay.
I may not always feel like it is, or I may sit there and go, but I don't want to go there. I don't want that business opportunity to go away or that friendship to go away, or, but when I don't fight it and I just ride the wave, it takes me to where I'm supposed to be, and life is a lot easier.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Master Plant Talk, a podcast about master plants. I am your host, Tyler Hurst of microdose.yoga, and I am joined today by the executive director of the ayamission.org, Patrick Gibbons. And I want to tell you a little bit about the Aya Mission because we had an interview with Andrew Lunsford a couple episodes ago, and he attended one of the Aya Mission's retreats. And so I want to tell you a little bit about what they do, and then we'll introduce Patrick and he'll tell you a little bit more. So the Aya Mission, here's their blurb: help can't wait. Your path to wellness starts here. Veterans deserve access to every effective healing option available. The Aya Mission, an IRS-certified C3 nonprofit organization, provides education, support, and community for veterans exploring entheogenic ceremonies as part of their wellness journey. They serve veterans through expert guidance, comprehensive education, veteran-centered support, and integration services. So Patrick, Mr. Gibbons, thank you for being here. Who are you and what makes you come alive?
What makes me come alive? In the last couple years, it's really been the Aya Mission. I went through a weird phase back in 2019. Had a weird thing happen to me where I got roofied at a bar. It totally changed my life. It threw me into a depression that I've never been through before. And during that time period when I was dealing with the aftermath of what happened in the blackout period, I had 4 family members die in like a 3-month period, which really sent me for a loop. And during that time, a friend of mine had gone to Costa Rica, and he came back and he said, "Hey, I just got back from Costa Rica. I went and did this ayahuasca. You have to go do it." And I said, "I have no idea what that even is." And he's like, "Look it up. It doesn't matter." He's like, "You need to do it." And he's one of like 3 people in the world that I won't even question. I know that he has my best interest in mind. I know that he knows me. But unfortunately, lockdown happened. So with COVID. So I wasn't able to go. With the lockdown, with the stuff that had happened, I hit a suicidal depression that I had never experienced before. I've always had ups and downs in my life. I thought I knew what mental illness was. I didn't know what it was until this period happened. And so I wasn't able to go to ayahuasca. And I happened to see a Mike Tyson interview. The interviewer was asking him, started off the interview with, "Hey, Mike, you've had your issues over the year. How you doing?" And Mike's like, "I'm fantastic." And the interviewer was like, "What's changed? What's happened?" And he said, "I was introduced to psilocybin, and I microdosed psilocybin." I didn't even know what the word psilocybin. I knew what mushrooms were. I didn't know what psilocybin was. I missed the end of the interview, so I didn't really get to see it. There's a little synchronicity where a few weeks later, I was on a dating app and I was flipping through, and there was a woman there that had in her profile, "I microdose psilocybin 5 days a week." So I reached out to her and I said, "Hey, listen, I'm not hitting on you." I said, "But you have this thing in your thing. And I saw this video with Mike Tyson, and would you be willing to talk to me about it?" And so we got on the phone and I told her where I was at, what I was going through. And she said, I think this could really help you. So sort of fast forward, she got me on a regimen of microdosing like 5 days a week.
Okay.
I had some immediate relief.
Okay.
A few months later, she said, hey, listen, I'm going to be in your town in a couple weeks. Would you be interested in going through a full session?
Okay.
And I said, sure. And she brought me through a full session of it. And I came out of that.
Different. Yeah.
Well, I haven't thought about suicide once in that time, since then. The thing that I came out of it that had me thinking was my grandmother was one of the ones that passed away. She was 96. We were actually happy for her because she wanted to go. But the other ones were my stepdad passed away out of the blue. He was early 60s. My little sister overdosed on heroin that was spiked with fentanyl. She was 34. I found out that my business partner of 10 years had cancer. It was terminal. She wasn't going to make it through it.
Jeez.
Then I found out that my other little sister, her cancer came back. It was in her liver. There was nothing they could do. It was just a matter of time. And then she eventually passed from it. With the psilocybin ceremony, in the ceremony, they came up. And when I came out of it, my day job is I design and manufacture exotic leather products for like the golf industry. And I've been doing it for 17 years. It's not really what I would call rewarding. And I started questioning, what am I doing with is this why I'm here? Is to make belts and head covers and stuff.
Yeah.
Is my purpose in this world to keep people's pants up? And my little sisters were both very giving people. And I had this desire to like give back. And so in the ceremony, I left it with, I need to get involved with some sort of charity or start a charity.
Okay.
And for about a year, I was trying to figure out like, what charity am I going to start? What's going to be the focus? What's the purpose of it? I got introduced to AYA in Tucson by a friend up here in Phoenix. And the first weekend I went down there for ceremony, I came out of it.
When was this approximately? Do you have a month or a year?
December of 22. Okay. During that weekend, the second, third night, the medicine just told me, like, you should work with veterans. This would be great for veterans. And, and I sat there, God, I don't know, it was almost a year being like, well, I'm not a veteran. I'm not really part of like, veteran communities. How do I do this? There's got to be a lot of hoops. And what ended up happening was the next December, I was going down for another ceremony, and I went to go on their website, and I scrolling down, and I happened to notice a little square that hadn't been there called the Aya Mission. And I clicked on it and started reading what it was about. And I'm like, somebody already did it. They're doing it. And when I got down there, I talked to one of the facilitators, and I said, hey, what's the story with this Aya Mission? And he said, oh, it's veteran up in Phoenix, Ulysses. He started this, but I heard that he's going to have to kind of back away because he works for the VA. And so I had asked Scott if he could put me in touch with them, and we got on a phone call. And then a few days later, Ulysses and I met for dinner. I told him, my interest in it. And really, he was getting ready to close it because he wasn't at the time able to do both things. And I had asked him, I said, well, instead of closing it, you've already started it. You've already got things going. Why don't you let me just come in and, I'll use my company to fund it. So the sales that I do through my company helps fund it. I now have a passion for my company because it serves a purpose. I obviously have a passion to serve those that have served. I didn't serve, and I've always kind of felt like, my father, my grandfather served. I didn't. So my way of serving is to serve those who served.
Okay. Good. Very cool.
That's my passion.
That sounds fantastic. So you said, so it sounds like you're like me. Your father served, your grandfather served. You were probably affected by their military service in some way growing up, but you didn't actually know it. Did you ever talk to your father and grandfather about their service, about them dealing with it, or was that something that just never came up?
Well, I talked to him about their service, but I also talked to him my freshman year of college. I was asked to leave in the first year, and when I got home, I had the idea that I'd like to join a service.
Okay.
And so I spoke to both of them, and both of them had really said, "Don't do it," which I was surprised about. But they gave me their reasons, and I listened to them.
Now, did they enlist of their own volition, or were they both drafted?
They
or
both,
do you know?
My grandfather
Both
was
enlisted.
a surgeon for the Navy.
Okay.
And my father had enlisted during Vietnam.
So you noticed the need to help, or apparently the medicine told you it was time to help veterans. And so when you first found out about the Aya mission, what did you think that it was? Like, what did it first appear to you as? Is it its final form now, which sounds like an all-encompassing type thing? Or was it just, and I say just, was it just a support for people in and out of ceremony? Like, how has it grown since you first started, or since you were first involved?
Well, it's grown through our Veterans Day and Memorial Day events,
okay.
where the entire weekend is veterans going through ceremonies. When I found it, they had sent a couple people through, on any given weekend. But during one of the ceremonies, it kind of came to me that, like, what if we had an entire weekend where all the participants were veterans, and they'd come together, go through ceremonies, go through integration circles. And so we had that last Veterans Day.
Were you there? So for you, how was the energy different having all veterans? Did it sort of feel like a normal ceremony, except everyone was comfortable with each other? Or, like, could you just talk about some of the maybe subtle differences you noticed?
Well, my shop is based in Texas, in El Paso, and I got introduced to a golf group that would play every Saturday out there. They were all soldiers from Fort Bliss Army Base. There is a different energy when you get, like, all veterans around each other. It's like a frat house. There's a camaraderie, brotherhood and we had every branch of service at Veterans Day minus Space Force. And, it didn't matter which branch you served in. They were all brothers and sisters. So the sharing that was done in the integration circles the day after ceremonies, I've never experienced anything like it. Just the rawness, just the level that they would open up. And it wouldn't necessarily be something that happened during service. Maybe it happened during childhood.
Yeah, Rich, one of our podcast guests, our initial one, said for a lot of people, their trauma did not start with the military. Maybe it was exacerbated by the military, but it didn't always start in the military. So it's cool that you're recognizing that too. Yeah.
But it was, I've been to, I don't know, 35, 36 ceremonies. We spent 10 days last summer down in the Amazon jungle in ceremonies. The Veterans Day was, by far the most special.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Really? So what do you attribute that to? Not what you attribute it to, because you can't super know, but what does the Aya mission do to facilitate that? Is it just an organizational arm? Like, what are you doing to help veterans achieve that level of trust or whatever else? Or are you just creating the space and they're doing it themselves?
It's just creating the space.
Okay.
They bring it. They bring the energy. They bring the trust, the openness. Okay. We have a safe space for them. We schedule the entire weekend. If they're flying in from out of town, we pick them up, bring them out there, make sure they get back to the airport. The weekends are laid out as far as, at this time we're going to do this, at this time we'll do this. One day we had a breathing session. Rich led a breathwork session.
Okay.
Another day, one of our volunteers led a yoga session.
Okay.
So there's stuff to do, throughout the day. And then obviously they have time to just do what they want to do. Whether it's be alone, journal, take a walk, shoot the shit.
Okay.
It was amazing. Just, in normal ceremony, if you're there for 3 days, when people come in on a Friday night, you can tell that everybody's a little standoffish. They don't really met anybody. Maybe they're brand new to ceremonies.
Mm-hmm.
We had the brand new to ceremonies. Some of the guys had gone through ceremonies before. Many of them hadn't.
Right.
But I think the fact that they knew that everybody had served.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't the, it's going to take a day or two to break down walls. They just they just came in, started sharing, started, giving each other crap. I mean, it was like they knew each other before they'd gotten there.
So is the Aya mission, is your role is it sort of like, I mean, I guess I compare it to Karma Crew. You guys are basically helping set up a ceremony. Are you doing anything to help during the actual ceremony, or is that the time you sort of have to your own? Are you helping facilitate while you're actually in the medicine, or are you sort of, you're sort of set up and take down and do all the in between type stuff?
It's more of the in between type stuff. We let the facilitators of AYA do their thing during the time we're in the ceremony, we're partaking in it. For me personally, I didn't have the amount of servings that I would normally have, because for me that weekend, it wasn't about me going into ceremony and having a journey. It was about them doing it. So
okay. Patrick, since you've been to almost 36 ceremonies, how would you compare the effectiveness of the retreat style stuff versus a ceremony where I just sort of go there at night and then I'm on my own during the day?
Well, with this one, everybody was with each other for 3 straight days. And the very last day, nobody was rushing to get out of there. People kind of wanted to stay. I've never really seen that before. I think when you're with each other the entire time, and we don't, if somebody wants to stay at a local hotel or something and have space during the day, we allow them to do it. We just suggest, that they might get more out of it if they're there the full day. And everybody did. Everybody stayed. On.
Okay. All right. So the Aya mission, it is for veterans and their dependents, and you said it's solely funded by is it solely funded by the profits from one of your companies? And what are those things paying for? Are they paying for scholarships to be able to go? Are they paying for the food and the drink when people are down there? Like, how are those funds being used to support the group and support the people that are attending?
Well, so last year it was solely funded through the company. This year, it's donations, it's sales of some of our merchandise.
Okay.
But yeah, they're used for the food that's there that we provide. They're used, last year we got a big kind of army surplus
big tent, green tent out there. Yeah, I saw it. Yeah.
Ashlands.
Okay.
And yeah, they're used to, partially sponsor the veterans, participation in it.
Okay. Okay. And that's just to make sure that, anyone who wants to participate can, as long as they're qualified, I'm assuming. Is there what criteria do you use to vet people to be able to come into the ceremony? Because I know ayahuasca doesn't work for everyone, and there's some people who might need some assistance getting stabilized or whatever else. What sort of criteria do you use to determine who's a great fit for ceremony, who might not be a great fit for this retreat type of thing?
Well, first of all, we have to verify their service.
Okay. Okay.
That's number one. Then they go through like a medical intake stage where not everybody can go through ceremonies.
Okay.
So they'll be asked all the questions of medication, historical stuff, with medical historical questions. And if they pass that, then they're in.
Great. All right. Is there any sort of pre-ceremony things that you guys do to help them get ready? Is there sort of like not pre-integration, but like pre-ceremony meetings or whatever that you facilitate or at least hold space for and allow to happen that isn't typical from a normal ceremony?
We do that through Rich, who you spoke with. Rich handles the pre-ceremony Zoom calls where he will kind of give them what they can expect during ceremony, how to prep for ceremony with your diet. And then there's the integration that he leads after the ceremonies, after the ceremony weekend. We have integration circles during the weekend after each night. The next morning, we'll get together and everybody will share kind of their experience or share whatever is on their mind. And then there's follow-up ones months after that we get together and make sure that everybody's good. I mean, the purpose, our main thing is the safety of the veterans. So, Ulysses has set up, a very stringent protocol that we like to have the veterans go through before ceremony and then after ceremony. Because, sometimes, things come up, in a weekend that, we're there for. It's not just we have this weekend and then, hey, thanks for coming. Our volunteers are there for them, other veterans that will sit there and take phone calls if they have any questions, if they need to talk to anyone.
So during ceremony, have you noticed, do other attendees, are they wanting to or able to help some of their other attendees? Does that happen a lot? Or is it more relying on the facilitators to do that and the attendees are more sort of on their own like a typical ceremony goes?
No, I mean, I saw attendees, helping each other through the night. This was not a typical ceremony.
Yeah, doesn't sound like it.
Again, with their energy, with just the love that they have for each other. That's that and that was one of the amazing things to see was there's people coming together that had never met each other before.
Okay.
You'd never know it.
Yep.
So there were, my hope going into the weekend was we had 22 people there participating, not including volunteers and facilitators. And I had hoped that, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 people would really have, like a great breakthrough weekend, impactful. I was blown away the last day of the integration circle that everybody shared, and what they shared was how impactful the weekend was for them. Wow. I didn't think it was going to be like everybody.
Wow.
So that was just fuel for, okay, you know what? Let's add Memorial Day this year.
Yeah.
Let's do 2 ceremonies. So I kind of have the vision that what we'd love to do is possibly 2 locations for Veterans Day this fall, 2 locations for Memorial Day next year, and to grow this to where there's multiple on the same weekend. I mean, we can bring 22 in for one ceremony. We can help 22 people. Well, 2 locations helps 44. It's one of the things, it's one of the reasons, my grandfather and father had told me, like, not to enlist, was that I was going to put myself in some politician's hands that would make decisions about what I'm going to do, where I'm going to. And in their opinions, what they had experienced was that when you get home, those people that sent you there aren't really there for you. And I have seen in the last 2 years, you see veterans being kicked out of facilities, in New York. And it's a thing to me that you can send 18, 19, 20-year-old kids across the world to do or see, things
traumatic
that impact them. Yeah. And then what happens when they come home? Are they taken care of? Are they really taken care of? Or are they given Band-Aids? That really doesn't solve anything. So for me, I had told Ulysses, the first time that we met, that we have sort of a little logo that we use at times. It's a starfish. And I don't know, have you ever heard the starfish poem?
No, please share.
Get the gist of it. There's an old man walking down the beach late, towards sunset one night. And off in the distance, he sees a little kid bending over, standing up, bending over, standing up. And as he's walking closer to him, he notices that the kid's picking up these starfish and he's throwing them back in the ocean. And he gets to the kid and he says, what are you doing? And the kid says, I'm saving the starfish. And the guy looked up the beach and down the beach and he's like, do you understand that there's thousands of starfish here? How do you think you're going to save every one of them? And I just get choked up on it.
Yeah.
The kid, bends down, picks up one, throws it back in the ocean. He's like, well, I made a difference for that one. I don't know how many people that will get through this, that will come to ceremonies.
Yeah.
But, to start somewhere, it's a ripple effect. If somebody goes through a weekend and they get healing done and they bring that home to their family, their kids, their wife, and they're in a better place, then Their family is too. Their friends are.
Yep.
Their coworkers.
Yep.
You know, I don't necessarily have the vision of we're going to get everybody through this, but we'll get as many as we can. Hopefully it grows and people start to realize that, you know, there are medicines out there that a doctor, Western doctor, is not going to prescribe. It doesn't mean that there aren't things out there that can do more healing, permanent healing, that they'd never have before. Like I said, I didn't serve. I know what I was going through before I was introduced to plant medicine.
Yeah.
I know that I didn't want to be here. I knew that the only reason that I was still here was because my mom was alive and I wasn't going to have her bury another kid. It helped me a lot. Now I know from going through a Veterans Day weekend, it does help them too. So it's
fantastic, Patrick. That's fantastic. I really appreciate you sharing that. I'm going to breathe really quick. If you want to breathe with me, you're invited to. I just want to sort of sit with that story that you just told. So I'm going to do 3 breaths. I'm going to breathe out like I'm breathing through a straw. And then I'm going to fill my belly up and then I'm going to sigh. I'm going to do that 3 times. If you'd like to participate, great. If not, just sort of sit there and feel my energy. But I'm going to go ahead and start because I want to really sit in that feeling. So go ahead and breathe out. Breathe into my belly. And sigh. Breathe into my belly. And sigh. Last one, I'm going to breathe out. Breathe into my belly. And sigh. Thank you for holding that space for me. That is a fantastic story. So it sounds like you know a little bit what it's like, at least a little bit what it's like not to be here, and not to want to be in your body, and not to feel worthy, and not to feel all those things. And you basically, in being healed from that or working on that or whatever else, is you don't want anyone else to have to face that alone either. You know, you're sort of being the person maybe that you needed or wanted or could have used for other people now, and that you are just basically helping them. Because really, you know, if you talk about military service or trauma or whatever else, it's all a version of PTSD or complex PTSD, because those are all sort of intertwined, whether it's emotional trauma or physical trauma or mental trauma or whatever else. And so it feels like just because, you know, you haven't been shot at, or I don't know if you've been shot at, you haven't experienced war, you haven't enlisted, but those feelings are similar. Like, you don't have to be in war to feel trauma. You also don't have to be traumatized to be in war. So that's an excellent story. Have you noticed in yourself, in your life, has anything changed since you've started on this, what I would say is a calling of sorts, passion, whatever else? Since you started working with the Aya mission, how has your life changed? Do you see things differently now? Do you feel more proud? Do you feel prouder of what you're doing in your everyday life? Is there anything in your life that's changed?
Well, I think it was, you know, there's a purpose. There's a purpose that wasn't there before. When I did the Psilocybin ceremony, Christy, the facilitator, had asked me before it started, she's like, "Hey, what's your gene keys?" And I said, "I don't even know what you're talking about." And she's like, "You don't know what gene keys are?" And I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about." So gene keys, from what I remember, it's kind of a combination between astrology and some 5 Asian philosophy that are combined. And so she asked me some questions, you know, when I was born, what time, what city, all this. She programmed it into an app. And the app kicked back what my gene keys were. And she started, there's 4, you have 4 main gene keys. And she read the first 2. And I was like, okay, I can see that about me. And then the third one, she said, "You will never feel completely fulfilled unless you're serving other people." And I immediately said, "That's bullshit." Like, I'm not some doormat. Like, what customer service type thing? I'm not like, and I went into the ceremony, came out of the ceremony, and with the stuff I shared earlier about my sisters and stuff, it had dawned on me that when COVID first started, I have a friend who owns a business, and his business neighbor owned a catering company. And the catering company obviously was crushed by the lockdown. But I had heard that the guy was attempting to kind of reinvent himself. And what he was doing was he was making prepared meals, pre-made meals for people that they could buy. And it was like, I don't know, $8 a meal. And I was like, well, how can we help him out? And I have another friend who has a t-shirt company. And I was like, I wonder if I could get him to make t-shirts. And I had 2 t-shirts that were just kind of, it was my being pissed that I was told that I was, what were the words they used back then to determine if you could work or not? It was, I have the shirts downstairs. I might have them here. Come on,
I'm spacing out on it right now.
Not that you're irrelevant. You're, hold on, I got a shirt right.
It's all right. This is awesome. I love we're tapping into so many different things. I just looked, what was it?
Essential.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
I was upset because I was told I was non-essential.
Okay.
I decided to make t-shirts that would say, one would say essential, the other would say non-essential. And we'd sell them. And whatever profit there would be, I would give it to the catering company to help him out. And after the first week of sales, I brought over money to him, and he's like, I owe you 95 meals. And I was like, I don't have a fridge big enough for that. I didn't think this through. I'm like, what do we do with the 95 meals? I just wanted to help you out. So he had said, I've worked with a handful of charities. Would you be interested in dealing with some charities? And I had asked him what charities he had. And one of them was a cancer foundation. My sister and my business partner were going through cancer. So I was like, that's perfect. And then one of them happened to be a homeless shelter here in Phoenix. And it happened to be a homeless shelter that my sister, before she OD'd, had stayed at. So we started donating the meals to those charities. And by the time that the shirt sales sort of fizzled out a few months later, we had raised like 1,200 meals. I didn't keep a penny of it. But what I realized was that I was, as far as like the doormat and being of service and saying bullshit to that, it dawned on me that was the happiest I'd been in a few years. And that maybe there's something to this gene key thing that I'm not giving credit to.
Correct.
And that's when I decided, I'd like to do something that has a little more purpose than, serving me.
Yeah, just as something that just had more purpose. That makes a lot of sense. How have you been, besides feeling accomplished? And by the way, I looked up my gene keys now, and I'm going to spend the whole afternoon on these because they're fascinating. All I know is the first one's genius, so I feel very complimented. Yes, I feel like a genius. Have you received any, I don't want to say monetary reward, but what have you found yourself, is life just easier now that you're doing what you want to do? And I mean relatively easier, not that it's easy, but how has your perspective on life changed now that you know sort of what your purpose, what your calling is, now that you're sort of operating that way? Do you wake up every day going, oh, hell yeah, or most days, I get to do something that's going to change someone's life today? Like, how is that feeling different from before, let's say, you found what you realized you were supposed to do? Is your day to day any different, or is this just more of a long term?
Well, I think the difference isn't necessarily, the differences really came from being introduced to the plant medicines and using them. And the difference now is, I figured this out last year, that for me, life is a wave. And if you ever watch waves come, they just, they come in. If you watch a surfer, he just rides the wave. And he rides it in the direction that, he doesn't necessarily get to pick where he's going. And I've always tried to pick where I'm going and to have some aspect of control. And I'm not always the best picker of where to go.
Okay.
And over the last couple years, I've realized, and it really hit home last year, that if I quit fighting where life is taking me, it's taking me in the direction of where I'm supposed to go.
Okay.
I may not always feel like it is, or I may sit there and go, but I don't want to go there. I don't want that business opportunity to go away or that friendship to go away, or, but when I don't fight it and I just ride the wave, it takes me to where I'm supposed to be, and life is a lot easier.
That makes sense. I often talk about ceremonies themselves as riding a wave, and so why that of course would apply to everyday life, but we don't always take that out of ceremony. If I were a veteran, all right, let's say I'm a veteran, maybe I'm going to the VA, I'm doing some of their stuff, I'm maybe trying therapy, maybe try some other stuff. What would you, if you could grab someone before they got into plant medicine or right as they're interested in it, what are some of the questions you think they might have, and or what are some things that you would want people to know before they start experiencing the plant medicine route? And this can be really for everyone. I'm talking about veterans just because you're working with the Aya mission. But if someone is interested in plant medicine, they've done some work previous to that, what are some things you'd want them to know in order to make their journey, more fulfilling, less, fragmented? Is there any advice that you might give that without changing their experience too much?
The very first weekend of ceremonies that I had, I actually was next to a gentleman that runs an ayahuasca retreat in Mexico. And I had a ton of questions for him. And the first night of medicine or ceremony, it didn't kick in for me all night. I didn't follow the diet.
Sorry.
I was eating Whataburger as I was going down that bumpy road to the facility, which is not apparently what you're supposed to do. So it didn't kick in the first night. I got very frustrated. And so he and I spoke for hours, like the next day. And he was kind of filling me in. And, what he was telling me, and I've come to find this out to be true, is the medicine's smarter than any of us. It's only going to bring up what you can handle. Now, that doesn't mean that the subject that may come up, I mean, I've had plenty of stuff that come up that I'm like, I don't want to dig into this.
Yeah.
This isn't pleasant.
Yeah.
But what I've realized is that it's bringing up what needs to be brought up.
Okay.
And for me, it's gone with the low-hanging fruit, or the things that are really impacting in a negative way my life. And when it cleans it up, then it goes on to another area. I have friends that haven't served that, have asked about, ceremony and well, I don't want to freak out, and I don't want to, this and that, and all these kind of preconceived notions of what might happen, and I tell them, I'm like, listen, it's different. The very first ceremony that I went to, my girlfriend was not pleased with the idea of me going to the ceremony. And, she was like, I really don't like the idea, of you going off in the middle of the desert with like 50 people you don't even know, doing drugs out in the desert. And I was like, I get it. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but you do understand that where this comes from, and they've been doing it for thousands of years, where this comes from, it's medicine. It's not drugs. So, does it make you feel any better if I say it like this? Yeah, I'm going to the middle of the desert with 50 people I've never met before to do medicine, to heal me. It's a little different, connotation than, I'm not going to Vegas. No, it isn't a rave. It's not necessarily an easy thing to do. One comment that she had made at one point about, it was like my third or fourth time going down there. It's like, if this stuff works, why are you going back? I think you've just traded ayahuasca for alcohol, or alcohol for ayahuasca. It's like, it's an addiction. And I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. When I drank, it was to avoid and to cover dealing with things.
Yeah, and ayahuasca is the opposite of that.
There's no hiding in there. There's no, I mean, it's, like, I don't feel well. I know that there's things inside of me that need to be dealt with. And I sit there and go, okay, Mother Medicine, let's go, let's clean up what needs to be cleaned up. I want to know what's holding me back. and ayahuasca it's just a mirror. And it's like an honest mirror of, I've had that medicine speak to me on things that I'm like, how does it even know that?
Yeah. Wow.
How, where is it coming from? It doesn't make sense that, this vine and this leaf can be put together.
Mm-hmm.
I take it, and all of a sudden I have insight that about myself, about other people, relationships, experiences. Like it's magic.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I remember when I was in Peru, and I just went in September, so it's still fresh in my head. They were talking about how the chacruna, which is the DMT part, for those who don't know, ayahuasca vine, which is non-psychoactive, requires the DMT part in chacruna. They don't even grow in the same area. So I don't even understand. I mean, I do understand how they found out, because they said other plants told them, which makes sense. But yeah, none of the stuff makes any logical, scientific sense. There's nothing to prove on that. There's no way we could have used microscopes to or scientific studies to see why ayahuasca vine and DMT mix so well. Like there has to be some other type of consciousness, power, whatever you want to call that, running this. So your girlfriend are you still with her? Is this the same girlfriend? Are you still together?
We are.
Okay. Did she eventually come around to your medicine use? Did some of the changes in her or in you sort of prompt her to better understand that it wasn't? I mean, it wasn't a drug. I mean, I would say not all psychedelics are just fun. Like I get that, but ayahuasca's prep and the post ceremony stuff isn't exactly something I would consider fun at all, even if the ceremony is great. Did she come around? Was there any sort of turning point for her when she realized this is actually a medicine that's working? You're different. Did that ever happen?
There was a difference that she saw just physically after a post ceremony.
Okay.
With ayahuasca, I think she's just accepted that I'm going to do this. This is important.
Okay.
And she's still at the place of fear for herself as far as doing it. That's fine. It's if it calls you, it calls you. If it doesn't, that's, I have no. So, and she knows that obviously the eye mission is really important to me.
Okay.
So she supports that.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I mean, that's honestly the most you can ask from anyone is just don't prevent me from doing it, just because some people aren't ready. I mean, I know that you can't convince anyone to come to a plant medicine ceremony. It doesn't work like that at all. They have to be ready for it. So let's pivot a little bit, talking more about the eye mission. Say you had unlimited funds and unlimited time. I know you've already talked about having multiple ceremonies at once, having, one in Tucson and one in, let's say, Apache Junction or Joshua Tree or wherever other ceremonies are. What is there anything that you would do or you would change if money and time weren't a limit as they are now?
Well, I mean, I think just getting the word out to veterans that there's an opportunity, there's a source here for potential healing. It's like when I started my company. I thought back then that if I make this product and I get it the way I want it, it'll fly off the shelf. You can have the cure for cancer. If nobody else knows about it, it's good for you and it's good for your small circle around you. So it's all about, just kind of getting the word out that there are churches out there that are doing ceremonies. And if you look at the testimonials, I watched the podcast that you had, a couple weeks ago. There's one of the eye mission veterans. You don't have to take my word for it. I mean, there's people
take his.
Take his. So yeah, I mean, it would just be getting the word out there and getting more people to experience it.
Is partnering or partnering with a group down in South America or bringing a group of veterans to South America, is that something that you've thought about doing, or is that more of a, in the future when logistics and all that type of stuff become a little bit easier? Is that something you're maybe not planning on, but talking about doing when possible?
Yeah, the gentleman that put together the retreat last summer in Peru, he's a volunteer with the Aya mission. He was in the Air Force. And when we were down there, one of the days he and I were talking, and I was like, hey, what do you think about, it might not be this coming summer, but what do you think about at some point we make a 10-day retreat open to veterans down here? We had a handful of veterans that were on that retreat, but it wasn't a veteran specific retreat. And so, yeah, he's talked about, he said, yeah, we should do it. So now it's a matter of the funds and doing
logistics and time and all that type of stuff. As far as the impact of the veterans' healing process, have you talked to many of their dependents? And I say dependents because that's a legal term for veterans' families, for everybody else. Have you talked to any dependents on how their lives have changed now that their veteran spouse or brother or whatever is at least in a healing process? Do you have any success stories from those?
I don't from the dependents.
Okay, all right.
I haven't had the opportunity to speak with dependents, but I've heard through participants that their relationships are better, that there's been a positive impact when they got home.
Yeah. This is just me thinking out loud. I wonder what it'd be like to have a ceremony for dependents, because a lot of dependents are, I wouldn't say they see a side of veterans or people suffering from PTSD or any sort of mental thing that, we don't. We don't always see people when they are at their angriest or saddest or most fearful or whatever else. I'd really be curious as to how that has changed.
Well, we leave open for dependents, the family members and stuff, that they're able to attend as well. Because like Ulysses says, it's not just the veteran that served, their family served too.
Okay.
So the I mission is open for, the veterans and their dependents.
Have you guys faced any, and I'm saying this out loud and I'm going to knock on wood to sort of clear it, but have you faced any, let's say, legal obstacles or any sort of pushback from governmental agencies or anything like that in the work that you're doing? Or have you heard of that from any of the veterans? Like, are they told by their caregivers or VA not to do this and they're sort of defying them? Or is it sort of quietly accepted, but maybe not talked about? Do you know much about that?
I think that we had some veterans that, like when we were taking our group photos, had asked, because of whatever position job they were in, to have us blur it out.
Okay.
We don't serve medicine, so we haven't had any pushback yet.
Okay.
I know that, one of our volunteers had received some negative messages from another veteran.
Okay.
And the veteran, from the way that I perceive it, doesn't really know what plant medicines do.
Okay. So this was someone who wasn't participating, that was just sort of judging the process.
That was judging it. And basically the way that, I read the texts were that, we're taking veterans and we're putting them on drugs. And I mean, our thing is not to do any harm to the veterans. Any facility that we recommend, we personally have gone through.
Okay.
To make sure that, it is a safe ceremony, a reputable process. We're not going to send somebody to a place that we haven't ourselves gone to. So AYA, Soul Tribe, we've been to their ceremonies. But, as far as to answer your question, just straight, no, we haven't experienced any.
So the plan is to expand, obviously, to do more ceremonies. Is there any sort of purposeful intent to introduce new veterans every ceremony, or are you trying to just help the people that need it? So are you looking to help 22 or 44 new people every time, or maybe there's going to be some returners? Or do you recommend that if a veteran might need, to sit again, are they sort of on their own? I don't mean you're abandoning them, but maybe they choose a normal ceremony type thing. Or are you trying to have veteran ceremonies of only veterans from here on out to make sure they can sit as often as they might need to?
It would be veterans and their dependents.
Yeah. Okay.
It's open to.
Okay.
We do have, like, for Memorial Day, we have a few people that came to Veterans Day that have, signed up.
Yep.
They're on
Yep.
the wait list to, go to Memorial Day. So
Yep.
love to see people come back.
Okay.
Sure, with your experience, that, like, there's always another layer to the onion that's going to get peeled off. There's always
God, yes.
more healing that can be done. So we don't say, oh, you went to Veterans Day, you can't come to Memorial Day. You have to wait a certain amount. If you want to come back, we'd love to have you back.
It's great. So in terms of numbers, how many people are applying for this type of thing? Are you guys having a tough time keeping up with the applications, or is it small enough now that you're not having to turn away dozens or hundreds of people at this point?
We're not turning away hundreds of people now.
Okay.
There were people on the last list that we probably had 50 people on there for 22 spots.
Okay.
But a lot of them sort of, handful of them faded off. Handful, things would just pop up, right?
Yep.
In August, they were like, yes, I want to go. And by the time, November rolled around, they were like, listen, I've got a family thing that I can't make it to, or that I have to make it to. So it just sort of happened. I think that, I think that's why we could have another event. We could have 2 events this year for Memorial Day if all the people that are on the list actually came through and fully registered.
So what you're saying is you have capacity for more.
We have people that want to attend. The capacity that we have now, we like to, we're not going to slam 40 veterans into a ceremony. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of energy with 22 in there dealing with what, some of them are dealing with. It's a good number. And obviously, to us, the symbolic number of 22 suicides a day, we want it. Our goal is to get that number down, but, we could have another event. If we had the volunteers, if we had the bandwidth to be able to pull off another one, we have the veterans to pull it off.
Okay. So you need it's the facilitators and the karma crew and this and all that type of stuff that you need more of. That makes sense. Now, demographic wise, and I don't have the numbers for this as far as the full military is. Do you find it's way more men than women? Is it evenly balanced? Is it about the same ratio of men to women as are enlisted in the military? I mean, who's coming to this? Is it all men? Is it like 2 women? Or have you guys really checked on that yet?
Well, because of a lot of our volunteers and facilitators are veterans, there was probably 5 or 6 women last time.
Okay.
Out of the 22 plus that were there.
Okay.
It's not men only. If you served and you want to come, we'd love to have you.
Energy-wise, in the ceremony itself, is there a different level of energy than sort of a regular ceremony? I mean, I know they're not all having wartime flashbacks because, like you talked about before, and we've talked about, a lot of trauma happens before the military. Besides being comfortable with each other and friendly with each other, how does the energy differ from, let's say, a regular ceremony where you have 25 people who may not have a shared history?
Well, I mean, if I kind of look back at my camp days, going up to camp, sleepover camp. There's a lot of joking around. There was a facilitator at AYA when I first started that before the night would start, before the ceremony would start, she would say, trust the medicine, trust yourself, never trust a fart. Well, you get a bunch of guys, military guys in the yurt at night. Those guys weren't listening to that. And I mentioned it to them before it started. Like, hey, they were really pushing the limits of, they started having some, frog calling contests across the room with each other. That doesn't happen in a normal ceremony. There's an openness and a friendliness and a different energy in that ceremony than there was in any ceremony I've ever attended. Wow. They're joking around, certain times during the night, one might call out to the other from across the thing, and it's special.
Yeah, I don't know if I envy, but it's impressive that their frog calling contest did not end in some sort of emergency is not the right word, but yeah, and that's true. The don't trust a fart thing is pretty important advice, just simply because you don't want to have to clean up after yourself. So that's great fortune on their part. Okay, so let's say I'm the dependent of a veteran, I'm the friend of a veteran. I notice that I want to help them, just help. Like I want to support them, be their friend, be their family member, whatsoever else. What's the best way to introduce them to the idea of the Aya mission? Should I send them to the website? Should I have them check out some of the testimonials from the people? Like, what's the best way to introduce them? And I don't mean convince them to go, but show them that the option is available. Is there any way that you recommend to really introduce people to this type of thing?
Well, I mean, I've been trying to get my brother to go to ceremony for a few years. And so, I've shared what my experience has been. I've sent him links to documentaries on it. My thought would be, I mean, like for me, I didn't know what ayahuasca was, but I had a friend say, hey, I just went and did this,
Okay.
Google it, look it up.
Okay.
I'm up, but I think this could really help you. Just knowing that a lot of people just don't know it's out there, right? They what? What's it called? No, like, so it's just planting a seed of, hey, there's something out there, like look it up, Google it. Yeah, go to the website, read testimonials. See what it's done for other people. And I still haven't gotten my brother to go. I water the seed a bunch. And I'll still continue to do it. When he's ready to do it, if he ever gets there, then he gets there. Other than that, support them the best way that you can. And, yeah, hopefully they get there.
Great. There's also the Aya mission contact form on the site, which I assume that a lot of people use. Does that go to you? Does that go to Ulysses? Is that go to a volunteer? Like, is there someone, if I was a veteran wanting to go to this, could I then schedule a call with you guys? Like, how does that work if I have questions, if I'm trying to sign up?
We have an automated list. So when they fill that out, the contact information and stuff, we have weekly meetings and we'll discuss of like, okay, who's going to call this person, that person. Yep. We have kind of the volunteer intake guys that do a lot of it, but Ulysses might call, I might call, it's all hands on deck. So, there's no job that's really underneath anybody else. So.
And all these volunteers, I assume, have spent at least some time with plant medicine. Like they're okay. So as far as like, there's no certification or anything. There's just experience. So they can answer at least about ceremonies and about medicine and all that type of thing. So, okay.
There's cool. That. And then there's different, training programs that volunteers will go through, in a variety of different kind of subjects, just to, have an idea of what may come up, and then the best way to deal with it.
And so if someone wanted to volunteer for the Aya mission, I'm assuming you guys are always open to people applying to volunteer to help. Would that form be the best way? Is there anything in particular, any sort of skill sets or whatever else that you're looking for as far as volunteers go?
I mean, we've got people that are volunteering to do like social media stuff, to help do like marketing.
Okay.
We've got volunteers that, we had volunteers come in for Veterans Day that came in and they cooked the meals for us. They didn't actually partake in the ceremonies because they'd be up really early preparing breakfast for the whole group. There's that do the airport runs, or there's always something that we're open. If they want to help, we'll fill a role that they can help with.
Okay, Patrick, last question. It's been fantastic. So we're talking about the Aya mission, which is theiamission.org, THEAYAMISSION.org. Is there anything that I have not asked you that you want people to know, either about ayahuasca, about the Aya mission, about sitting in plant medicine ceremonies, that you'd like to share before we go?
I may have covered it, but, there is a source for veterans to get relief. It may not just be, ayahuasca. but we've had a lot of people come through that it's helped with. I don't know how they got up here, but they got up here. So, hey, come here. Come here. Oh, there we go. That was all the noise.
It's adorable.
You know, we have the people that are on the I Mission team. They really care about veterans. They're veterans. They know what they've been through. They just want to help. And I think that knowing that for veterans out there that have never attended a ceremony before, to know that they're going to be looked after, they're going to be cared for. They're our mission. Their safety, their health, their well-being is our mission. It's a potentially life-changing weekend that they can have.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Patrick. I really appreciate your time. We've been talking to Patrick Gibbons, the executive director of the Ayamission.org. Their next event will be held on Memorial Day weekend, and applications are still open for that, I believe. Still open? Yes, still open. So if you're interested or you're a dependent and you know someone that is interested, please go to the Ayamission.org and apply. They'll get you in their database, and then someone will call you back eventually. So Patrick, I really appreciate it, and thank you so much for being on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for doing all this. I've enjoyed watching the other podcasts.
Thank you.
I probably won't enjoy watching this one, but I like watching the other ones.
I have to watch myself every time, so it's just... All right, so I'm going to go ahead and we're going to stare at the camera for 5 seconds while I press stop, and then we will see everyone on our next episode. So thank you all very much. I've been Tyler Hurst of Microdose.yoga with Patrick Gibbons of the Ayamission.org for Master Plant Talk, episode 5. Thanks so much. Bye.
What's in ayahuasca, it's just a mirror. And it's like an honest mirror of, I've had that medicine speak to me on things that I'm like, how does it even know that?
Yeah. Wow.
How, where is it coming from? It doesn't make sense that, this vine and this leaf can be put together. I take it, and all of a sudden I have insight that about myself, about other people, relationships, experiences. Like it's magic.